So we'll get started. Today, when we're talking about the Canvas Gradebook and Canvas assignments and Canvas tests, we want to approach this from two different aspects. We want to approach this from the aspect of the instructor that teaches traditional only classes, which means you're not going to have any assignments done on Canvas at all. So you want to be able to keep your gradebook in Canvas, and you want students to be able to see their grades in Canvas. And Canvas has a neat feature called the what if feature, so that students can say, what do I need to make on these next grades for these next assignments or this next test in order to get the grade that I want to be able to make. They can put in sample grades for themselves. And there's the second way, of course, is for being able to take assignments via Canvas. Now, that's not restricted to online or hybrid. Anybody can take assignments via Canvas, and I would encourage you to use that if your students are turning anything into you that could be turned in electronically. It would be a really nice thing for you to be able to do for yourself because it's so easy to grade things in Canvas, and so it keeps things together and organized so nicely for you to do that in Canvas itself. So let Canvas collect that information for you. It gets nice cutoff dates and everything works really well. So we'll start off first with the most basic piece of how you set up a gradebook in Canvas when you aren't going to have anything at all done whatsoever taken online. So a regular traditional class where all the students are going to do is come in and sit down and take tests. So first thing, obviously, we need to log into Canvas. Let's hopefully I can get my password typed in correctly today. Yes. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the course, and in this case, I'm going to go into my test course 1. If you guys here would like to go into one of your test courses, you're more than welcome to do that as well. And I've already got some stuff set up in this test course, so you guys can just ignore some of the items that are there. What I will do for the sake of argument for this class is I'm going to reset this course content, which is going to delete everything in this test course. So I'm starting from scratch for this course, just like you guys might be if you were creating something. So I'm going to go into settings and reset course content. So it basically wipes out everything in this course. And as we know, I like to make sure I have only those things active that we want active. So I'm going to drag everything down. And this was in our previous class on which items we wanted to leave available to students and which ones we didn't. And just as a quick review, we make sure we leave home, announcements, grades, people, modules, and if you do see help desk and library, which you should, those two should stay as well. Those are links out to external sites that we put in there for you.
That was in settings.
Settings and navigation. Settings at the there are two settings. We should make that clear because that has been a point that a couple of users have brought to me. There are two settings. The settings, if you're in a course, at the lower left-hand side of the menu is the course settings, and then up at the top where your name is, those are your user settings. So there's course settings at the lower left, and at the top in the bar, the settings, that's user settings. And the user settings are things that we very rarely go to. We covered very briefly in the initial course what's there, and that's linking your account to Facebook or to other things and setting up additional email addresses or telephone numbers. For the most part, you won't go there very often. First thing you have to do is go into the course. Once you're in your course, you're going to go to Settings in the menu at the left. And then you can use a test course as well. Okay, and then you should see Settings. It should be the last thing on the left-hand side at the bottom. And you click on that, and then you click on Navigation. It'll be the tabs in the middle across the top. Yes, ma'am. And then you will want to drag everything down except for, and literally you just grab a hold of the item and you can drag it down except for home, announcements, grades, people, modules, help desk, and library. Sure. And again, just so that you guys remember, the point of this, as we talked about in the first course, was so that students had a unified navigation system. So when they go into the course, where they go is modules. So that everything a student needs to see is underneath modules, so they don't have to wonder where to go. That's correct. You need grade stays, yes. Yeah, but everything the student's going to do for the course is going to be underneath modules. All course content, any assignments, any assessment that goes on is all going to be done underneath modules. Okay? And then save at the bottom. And so that does your basic menu setup. And again, in case you guys don't remember, at the left-hand side, if you see an item that's in light color, like announcements and modules are for me, I'm an instructor, so I can see everything, including all the items down here at the bottom. I know, because of what I've just done here, everything below library is turned off. Drag items here to hide them from students, so everything below library is hidden from the students. Everything above library should be visible to students, except for these announcements and modules, because they're light. The reason the students can't see them is because there's nothing in them. There's not an announcement in this course yet, and so there's nothing underneath announcements, and I haven't created a module, so there's nothing there for students to see yet. So now if you're an instructor and you're setting up your traditional course, again, we talked about this very briefly in the initial course. You'll go into modules, and we'll just do this very, very quickly. You will click on modules. You're going to create a module, and more than likely you're not going to have very much material in here because most of your instruction is going to take place in class. At minimum, we would ask that you put the syllabus up here. The module is a container. It's just like a header type thing for you for your organizational structure. But if all you're going to post is a syllabus, you could put just the word syllabus up there and then add module, and that's going to give you a place to add the syllabus. And then at the right hand side there's a little drop down, and you can do add content. And from here, if you have the syllabus is a file, and again, all this is covered in depth in the first class, so we're just kind of do a real quick review here. You've got several different pieces and several different options here for different things you can add. We're going to choose file, and then we don't have any files existing in this course, so we would have to click new file, and then we could browse to the file by clicking on choose file. We would find our syllabus wherever it happens to be, and I'm just going to grab a file, and you can have it indent, and indentation is strictly a formatting thing for you. I personally like 2 levels if I'm not going to do a whole bunch of fancy stuff. And you click add item, it uploads the file and makes a link there for you. And you can see a little counter down here at the bottom. It tells me the percentage at the lower left hand corner. I'm pointing at the screen like the recording people that are recorded could see me. And it shows you that now the file is uploaded and it's visible for students to be able to see, and they can click on that file and they can download that file so that they have access to the syllabus. So it's a fairly simple process. You simply use the little gear, add content, choose file, browse, hit upload, and you're done. And again, that's covered in detail in the initial videos. So now you've got the basic syllabus up there, and all you really care about now is adding assignments for the gradebook, correct? Now, here's where you have 2 different approaches. So here's where it differs. If you were an online instructor, you would continue to add your assignments through modules. So if I were going to do an online instruction and I had an assignment that students needed to turn in, I would add the assignment here, new assignment, and I would go through it in modules so the students could see it, because modules is where they see their items. So they can't see anything anywhere else. So I need to do it through assignment. I need to do it through modules. Add assignments, quizzes, tests, etc. through modules. If you don't, you can add them later. You can link to them. They'll show you the existing ones there. But it's best to create them here from the get-go. If you are not doing it, you don't want the students to see it here, because there's nothing for them to see. You're not going to put the questions in Canvas. You're not going to do anything. There's no need for them to see anything related to the assignment. So here's where it's different. You go to the assignments page. So the students can't see that link, but you as an instructor can. So you click on assignments. And now the very first thing I would do is some of you have used the JD Gradebook. If not, I know you have a certain way you grade grades in your class. You have that already. And some of you may use groups. So you may say, when I talk about groups, you may have homework as a group. You may have in-class assignments, participation, tests, maybe a group, something along those lines. My very first step would be to set up the groups that I would use in my class before I added anything else. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, there's Add Assignment Group. And so to add a group, that's what we do. We click that link. And it asks us for the group name. And this group name is important because students will see this. So when you're typing this group name, whatever you put on your syllabus, if you told students, tests will be worth 40% of your grade, put tests here, don't put exams, because that might throw them off. You want to make sure, this is just, how students think. They want to see the same word in wherever they're looking. So we'll just call this tests. And you can go ahead and put the percentage here if you want to, or you can update the percentage later. For now, I'm going to leave it at 0%. We're going to pretend like I don't know how much it's going to be worth. And maybe I have class participation. Is that a good group maybe you guys have? I'm just guessing here. Okay. And you have homework. Quizzes. Okay. Final exam. Okay. And now it automatically adds one called assignments. If you don't want that one, you can come down here, see this one down here, it automatically had one called assignments. We can click this X at the far right hand side, and it's going to say, are you sure you want to delete this group? And if we don't need it because you don't use it, delete it. You can do that first or last. Either way is fine. Either before you add yours or after. Yep, exactly. You use the terminology you use on your syllabus, and you're better off. So now we've created our groups. Now let's create our assignments in each group. And they're called assignments based on Canvas terminology. So that's important. When you create this, even if you're creating the final exam or a quiz, you may be tempted to create a quiz in Canvas. Don't create a quiz. Create it as an assignment, because you're not giving a quiz in Canvas. Your students are not going to take a quiz in Canvas. This is simply a grade because they're just going to see this. So if you're doing it from a traditional standpoint and the students are not going to input anything at all, everything is an assignment. Period. Does that make sense? That makes it easy. So the final exam may only have one thing. So when I come up here to this group, you can see that I have a little plus sign. I can click that plus sign, and it gives me an option to type what I'm going to call this. In this case, there's only going to be one thing, so I'm just going to call it final exam. What type is it? Remember how I told you everything? If you're not actually teaching and having the students input the information online, you want it to be an assignment? It's already going to call it an assignment for us. We don't have to do anything else. You can set a due date. There's no need to. Students don't need to see it. If you want them to see when that exam is in their calendar for Canvas, just as an extra point, as an extra thing for them to see, you can go ahead and tell them when that exam is going to be by setting that due date. So maybe that exam is going to be May 1st. And it's going to happen at 12 o'clock p.m. And it's worth how many points?
30.
30 points. And I can click update. Okay?
Does that automatically go on the calendar or does it go on the top screen?
Yes, it does.
Okay. You sold me.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So
repeat your question for the audience.
yeah, it does. Yeah, they probably, the mic's not too bad. You're talking loud enough they can probably hear you, but that's very good. Let's repeat it. Does this date, May 1st at 12 p.m., automatically go on the calendar here? And the answer is yes, it does. That's why if you put that due date in there, it does go ahead and give the student that calendar entry Are they going to look at it? I don't know. But they will get those reminders in Canvas when they log in that, hey, if you put that date there and they do log into Canvas, even if it's for another course, they see that list on that right-hand side. And let me bounce out of here real quick to show you guys and remind you. They see a list on the right-hand side of upcoming things. So they will see that even if they don't look at their calendar. If they log into Canvas for any reason whatsoever, they will see that, look, there's a final exam due May 1st at 12 p.m. So they'll know when that final exam is.
So if we assign dates to everything we put in, they don't have to say, what's due next week?
If they look at Canvas, the information will be there. Now, that's whether or not they look at Canvas, that may or may not be something that actually happens. Let me bring both my test courses back in here. Okay, were we in test course 2? I think we were. Yes. And we had gone to assignments, and I just created one final exam underneath the final exam. So now let's go into quizzes. And I'm going to click the little plus, and I'm just going to, for the sake of being easy, I'm just going to let this be called quiz 1. Yes, ma'am. You have 5? Okay, well, I can stick 5 in here easy enough. And I'm not going to bother with due dates, just for the sake of making it easy. How many points will the quizzes be worth?
Well, all of them together average 30%.
Okay.
So we have to divide by 5.
No, you don't even have to do that. You just tell Canvas the group is worth 30%. How many points are the quizzes worth?
It'll tell me how many?
It'll figure all that out. You just tell it how many points each quiz is worth and how many percent the group is worth.
But in order to find out how much each quiz is worth, I have to divide.
You don't need a percent. You just need points.
Okay, well,
That makes it easier. You don't have to worry about totaling and how everything adds up. If every quiz is going to be worth 20 points, and there are 5 of them, it's 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, and all that together is worth 30% of the grade. You don't have to do any more math.
oh,
If they're each worth 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, all that together is worth 30% of the final grade. You don't have to do any more math. They take all that and simplify it for you.
okay.
So 10 points? 20 points? And again, remember that 20 points does not have any relation to the final grade at all. That's to the quiz itself. How many questions are on the quiz? Are there 20 questions? This could be worth 20 points. That's all you would have to do.
Okay.
You don't have to calculate, this should be worth X number of percentage. You don't have to do any of that. Canvas will handle all that math in the background.
Okay.
So we're going to say 20 points, and we're going to do that again 5 times. So I'm going to hit the plus. Quiz 2 is already there, 20 points. Hit the plus. Quiz 3 is there, 20 points. Plus. Quiz 4 is there, 20 points. Plus. Quiz 5 is there, 20 points. And update.
Now, where did you say that the quizzes all together are 30%?
That's all set over here. You could set it here, but to me it's easier to set it when you can see them all together. Yeah, I'm sorry, you might not be able to see everything. You should be able to see if you've added groups and stuff on your screen. So if the final exam is worth how many percentage in your class? I mean, 30%? And the quizzes are 30%? And then we have homework would be 20%. And we've got a couple of other things that are in here. So we'll take tests out since you guys don't have a test. And we still have 20% left, so we'll just give class participation 20%. That adds up to 100% of my grade.
Okay.
30, 30, 20, 20. And it's all set. To me, it's easier to do it over there on the side when I can see it all and I can see how it adds up. And as I type it, it'll automatically calculate those totals. Especially if you have a lot of groups and you're doing weird percentages, you don't have to do it. The math is not that hard, but you don't have to do even that simple math in your head.
So do we have to put points in for each quiz or each test? Or can we just leave the percentages over
You
the side?
do, I believe you do need to put points in for each quiz and each test because they do have to have some sort of a grade for each quiz.
Okay.
So you do, for each quiz, they do have to have a grade, and that means Canvas needs to be able to figure out the percentage of that. So if you do have, they need to know what a full count, what a full amount is. So what 100 is basically for the quiz. So 20 out of 20 would be 100 for the quiz. So they need to be able to figure that out. So you do need to put in a total number of points for each quiz. So underneath homework, I'll just put in 3 things here. I know you guys probably have quite a bit more than that, but for the sake of brevity during our demonstration, and I'll make each of these worth 5 points. Okay, and now we have class participation, and I'm going to put, let's do these at, let's do full 100 points because they're just a full grade. And again, the amount of points really is irrelevant. That's kind of what I want to show here. So the amount of points is irrelevant. You can make it out of 100 and it's not a problem. We'll do 4, just to have a different number. Okay, so now we've got the basics here. Now, there is one other thing, well, there are a few other things we have to look at. To look at the settings, which normally are not an issue you guys will need to worry with, you can click on the name of any of these assignments. It does exactly what I wanted to. By default, see here that says submitting nothing. If you don't change that, you're set. You don't have to worry about it. But if for any reason you do change that, students will see something different if they try to click on it. So if you're doing it traditional and you don't want the students to ever submit anything, never change this away. Don't go into edit here and change this from no submission to online, on paper, or external tool. You do not want to do that. Leave it at no submission and don't even come into this area. By default, it's going to stay exactly what you want it to stay. So you follow those steps we just followed and you are 100% set as far as the basic setup. So you've added everything, you've got all your assignments, your quizzes, etc., set in here. You've got your percentages set. Now, do you allow any drop grades? You do? Do you allow any drop grades? No drop grades for you? Okay. If you do, because I know what some instructors do, some instructors don't, that's completely fine. If you do drop grades, give me one of these categories. How would you do your drop grades? You do your tests, so we'll do the quizzes. Can we do the quiz? For our example, we're going to do the quizzes since I don't have a test category. Sorry.
Yeah, you took the test category.
I did take the test category away just for the sake of being brief.
Okay.
So we'll set it up in quizzes. And again, you can do this over multiple groups. So I can, instead of adding another something or changing something in the individual assignment, I can edit the whole group by clicking on the pencil. And I add a grading rule to this group. The grading rule is drop the lowest grade, drop the highest grade, or never drop. Now, there's not too many cases where you drop the highest grade. Sometimes I can conceive of a few circumstances in which you would, but by default it starts off with drop the lowest. And maybe you let them drop the lowest 2. That's being very generous. In this case, when there are only 5 quizzes. So let's say they can only drop the lowest 2, but there's something special about quiz 5, and you don't allow them to drop quiz 5. So you can add another grading rule and say never drop, and it gives you an option to select which assignment, quiz 5. Click update, and then now there's a little more info button here, and it will tell you drop the lowest 2 scores, but never drop quiz 5.
Now, if we set that at the beginning of the year, is it going to drop the grade every time that they look at it? Or is that one of those what if things?
That's one of those what if. If they start filling in their grades, then it will start populating those drop grades.
Okay.
If they don't start filling in those grades, then it will not use the drop grades to calculate because it will not be able to. Obviously, it doesn't have enough information to do drop grades at that point.
So you're saying they have to input their own grades into a what if clause?
That's correct.
Okay. Because they're not going to put the grade. We're going to record grades that are going to stay there.
That's right. You record real grades. Their what if grades are temporary only while they're looking at it. That's correct. What if grades are temporary grades. We'll cover that at an actual demonstration here in just a few minutes. So now, basically, if quizzes is the only thing that we're going to allow drops on at all, maybe that's the only thing in our class. Again, we could repeat that for class participation or homework or for others. And we could do that. But maybe that's the only thing we have is just quizzes. Oh, by the way, this should be checked. Weight the final grade based on assignment groups. If that gets accidentally unchecked, my group weights go away. See, all the stuff over here went away. All my percentages for each group. So by default, it's checked. But if it accidentally gets unchecked, that will cause your grades to be calculated incorrectly because it will basically divide them all equally. And that 100 points will be worth a lot more than the 20 points at that point. But as long as you leave that weight the final grade based on assignment groups, it will handle everything properly and the grades will be calculated correctly. So I wanted to point that out. By default, that's already checked, but you want to make sure that you don't uncheck it by accident. And if you do start seeing strange things in your grade book, make sure that is checked properly. So we have our grades set up, and now we're ready. We've had several items come in. We're ready to record some grades. Now we go to grades. You simply click on grades, and you have your grade book. Now, if you don't like the order that this is in, if I remember correctly, what you can do is go back to assignments and reorganize those in assignments, or if you wanted them arranged by due date, you can arrange them by due date. So let's say I don't like the order that these are in. I want my final exam first. That's the last thing, right? That should be very to the far right. That's going to confuse my students. And I don't want to put due dates on everything because maybe I've got some things planned during the term that are fluid and I know they're going to change a few dates and I've got a good idea when they're going to be, but I don't know exactly when those assignments are going to take place. So to get out of the grade book, I click back on test course 2 in my case, or whatever the name of your course is. I can go back to assignments again, because remember, that's for a traditional course where students aren't turning anything in. That's where everything is set up. And just like in modules, you guys remember how in modules we can move things around? See how that turns into a nice 4-pointed thing? I can click and I can just drag this down. And I need to scroll down a little more. I can drag this on down below. And maybe homework, I want that to be first, and I want class participation to be second. So now I have homework, class participation, quizzes, and final exam. Now if I go back to my grade book, I have homework, class participation, quizzes, and final exam. Now, and I know, Ms. Norris, you mentioned you have a whole bunch of stuff out to the right-hand side. This may be what you're seeing. I didn't think about this before. I'm not sure, because I haven't looked at your course specifically. You'll note that I've got all the grades, and then I've got several columns out here. In my case, I've got 5 additional columns to the right. This is homework, which is going to be 20% of my grade, and that's a total of all of my homework stuff added up. So all my homework points added together. So I can see what the total of my homework is. I've got class participation, again, that's a total of that group. And then I've got my quizzes group, my final exam group, and then I'll have my total average here at the far right. So I'm not sure if that's what you're seeing. We'll look at yours after we finish and come to a break point here in just a little bit. But those are your groups at the far right-hand side. And you can tell the difference because the column is a darker shade of gray. See how this is the name of the column is blue for an actual grade, and the column is a light color. And here, the name of the column is black, and the column itself is a darker. The cell itself is a darker color of gray. I'm going to go all the way back to the left, and let's just put some sample grades in. So I can just click and type a grade. So I'm going to type in out of 5. I'm going to give them 4. I'm going to tab, or I can right arrow key to go back and forth. Tab or arrows will work either way. Yes, and I'm going to give it another 5, arrow, 3, and class participation, a 90, and a 20, and a 30. Had a couple of bad days, and a 79, and a quiz, 10, and a 0, and a blank, and a 15, and you'll already notice here, see how these 2 columns are darkened in quizzes? And they kind of have lines through them? Those are the ones that are going to be dropped. So it tells you very quickly, very easily, which ones are dropped already. Notice that it doesn't drop an empty grade. So if there's nothing there, it doesn't count as a 0. You'll need to put a grade in everywhere. So if a student doesn't do anything, if they don't turn in an assignment, you need to put a 0 for it to count as a grade. And this one will be an 18. And we'll make this a 2. Now you see how it changed. So the 0 and the 2 are now dropped, and the 10 is counted, since I put a grade in quiz 3. And the final exam, I'm going to leave that one blank. We'll use that for the what if scenario. So now we can see at this point I have a 69.2. I'm so close to that C, and I'm a student and I want to know what the heck I got to make on the final exam. So you can see everything here, no problem. It all looks, for your grade book, does this, so far, is this making sense? All right? Remember, everything's being recorded, so you can watch this as many times as you would like. Slow it down, pause it, rewind, not a problem. And we'll be having these courses again during the summer. We'll start off with the beginner's course and the gradebook course, and we'll teach these 2 or 3 times during the summer as well in class. Again, to get back to the main course, I'm going to go back to test. Oh, I did want to show you, if you guys remember, we talked about the capabilities to merge your sections together, so that if you had the exact same material for multiple sections of the same course, you could merge those together. By default, it's going to show you all those sections in your gradebook, and it will alphabetize them. So your sections will be mixed because all of the students will just be alphabetized, and that can be difficult to enter grades in because you don't have your roles that way. So if you want to change that, if you have multiple sections, you simply click the drop down and pick a specific section. So if I had History 101A, History 101B, I would use this drop down here in the gradebook to pick that one specific section. And then it would make it easier for me because I would only see those students from that one section when I was entering grades in. So that's only if you only see that if you ask us to combine your sections together. If you're not comfortable with Canvas yet, I would probably not recommend that you do that. That may be something you want to do in the fall or the spring. We are going to have some additional training on specifics of what it looks like. We'll probably have an hour-long class because it'll be a very short one on what it looks like when things are combined together. So I've got information entered for my test student. Now, do you guys want to see what it looks like for that student? Let's go back to the course. And do you remember from our intro course how to pretend to be a student, how to log into your course as a student? Very good. That's underneath your course settings here in the menu. And we do go to Student View, which is up here in the top right. And now we're viewing this course as a student enrolled in this course. You'll note that I have recent feedback, and I have 9 more. So when the student logs in, they're going to see all that information. And I can see them coming up, my final exam, like we talked about. It's got the date there. So this information would show up here, and it would also show up when they first logged in. But this is course-specific information. When they first log in, it'll be all of their course information from all their courses. This is only for this one course. I can see here I've got a blue number 12 that tells me I have 12 new grades that I haven't looked at yet. So I can click on Grades as a student. And this is what the students see. So they see a very nice little presentation of the grades. And you can tell if you look down here that Quiz 2 and Quiz 3 are dropped. And if you put your mouse over top, there's a little pop-up that says, this assignment will not be considered in the total calculation, so they know which ones were dropped.
And then as you put more grades in, it'll change.
That changes depending on which one is their lowest grade, if you've got lowest grade or highest, depending on what the grades are. They have an option to print their grades out. So there will not be any need whatsoever for athletic instructors to request official grades from athletic coaches to request official grades from the instructors if the instructors are using Canvas Gradebook, because students can print them. They'll be able to access their grades and print a nice official copy of their grades. Right now I can see my grade is a 69.2, and and I can see that I don't have a score. I've got a dash in my final exam, and if I put my mouse over there, it says click to test a different score. So if I want to see out of 30 points what happens, and let me put it in a number. Let's try a 20. What do I have if I get a 20? Well, one thing you're going to note here is that it doesn't change. And you're going, I wonder why it doesn't change. And this is something that I'm hoping Canvas will change, because I don't really like this right now. Right now, this is checked. Calculate based only on graded assignments. So if you're going to encourage your students to use this, I'm going to make a video before summer starts for students on how to use the what if feature. It's pretty much self-explanatory except for this one item. Calculate based only on graded assignments. Has the final exam been graded yet? No. So it's not including that final exam that they just put in for the what if. If I uncheck that, now you can see their grade just dropped to a 48.5. Down here at the bottom or at the top. The student can uncheck that. Okay. Now that's only for the view while they're looking at it. It won't change anything, doesn't change official grades. Anything they enter in here, y'all, they can go in and they can say, what if I had made a 100 on that? Something that's already graded? Class participation? Oh, that would have brought it up. It wouldn't have changed it much. Okay. Well, what if I had made a 20 on that quiz? Well, that would have brought it up to a 54. So they can change previous grades. That's one of the reasons I want y'all to point them to our video when we get it there. It doesn't do them any good to change those grades. Right. It doesn't do them any good. So to get rid of that, they can click this little arrow. The only grades they want to change are ones they haven't actually had done yet. Now, keep in mind, when they quote-unquote change these grades, it's not really changing anything. It's simply for them to do what ifs. The official grades are still there. Your grade book does not get altered in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But a 20 is not going to get them anywhere. That's going to lower their grade by quite a bit. So let's try a 25. It's out of 30. I wonder if I've confused it. I think I've confused it with the what if. What I'm going to need to do is give Canvas a call and find out why the what if is not functioning right. I think it's not. What should happen is they should be able to leave this checked and not touch anything. And it might work fine for a real student. It may be the test student that has a problem, to be completely honest. I'll test it as a real student instead of the test student to make sure. But what should happen is they put in their score, and this number will alter. And the number down here, which is the same thing, will alter. So that they can see how their score would change. And they can see, well, if I just want to get that to a C, and they can figure out what that number here needs to be. I need to get 25 out of 30 points or whatever the case may be. So that's ideally, that's the way it's supposed to work. And again, as a test student, that may be an issue as a test student. And if this is an issue as the test student in this course, I'll report that to Canvas, and hopefully they'll get that fixed within the next 2 to 4 weeks. But that's how the what if works. Any questions on that one? Aside from the fact that it didn't actually update for us, but it should. And hopefully this check mark here will not actually matter for the what if. It should not. And again, they can print their grades and take them to a coach or their parents or wherever it might need to be. We have our midterm grade reports that we do give to students. What I'm hoping is that perhaps, we haven't talked to the academic dean yet, but I'm hoping maybe that she would allow this to be the official midterm grade report to tell students, hey, just send them an email and say your midterm grades are in. You may go into Canvas and print your grade report. Now, I don't know whether she'll allow that or not, but hopefully she will. Okay, I'm going to leave student view. And if you guys want to, we'll take about a 5-minute break. Yes, ma'am.